Hi, this is a quick warning. Today's story isn't true crime, but it's true human spirit. Keep going, don't stop, keep moving forward. One foot in front of the other. Keep going, don't stop, don't rest. Let's keep going, let's keep moving, keep running, keep going. Welcome to Extraordinary Stories Podcast. Hi, how are you? Are you well? Are you good? I am. I ask that genuinely. How are you? Are you good? Are you well? I want to know. I got accused of possibly sounding a little smug when I say that. I'm not smug. I'm not a smug guy at all. But, I ask it genuinely. I ask you to take that moment and work out, am I well? Yes, I am. Or no, I'm not. Alright, shout outs. Claire Smith. Hello, Claire. How are you? Kevin Smith. Hello. I don't think you and Claire are related. You just happen to both have the surname Smith. Maisie Marsland. Hiya. Simon Corkery. Hello, how you doing? And Amanda Leonard. Amanda Leonard, you were nominated by your good friend Natalie Mahoney to get a shout out on the podcast. I'm loving this friends and family nominating each other for a shout out kind of thing. I think it's really nice. There's something really nice about it, to get in touch and be like, would you mind giving a shout out to my so and so who really likes it? So that's good. And finally, Jim Markley. Jim, when I wrote your name down, I wrote it down as Jim Malarkey because it's a lot of the same letters as Markley. But yeah, hi Jim, how you doing? Okay, this story isn't true crime, but it is true strength. It's pretty extraordinary. I was sent this story, and when I start it, I think quite a lot of you will know it, but I just think it's so worth telling. I was sent this story almost a year ago, and I just have never had the right time to kind of get round to doing it. Okay? Are you ready? Okay? Let's go. Alright, we're in Australia, and it's February 1922, when Mary and Albert Young give birth to their son, Clifford. The Youngs were a farming family, and they owned a farm which was just over 2,000 acres in size, so pretty bloody big. And on this farm, they had some, I just heard, and on this farm they had some sheep. They did have sheep. They had 2,000 sheep. Whoa, that's a lot of sheep. Now the family, they were struggling financially because of the current economic climate. And they couldn't afford horses or cows. So sheep was mainly what they had on the farm. They also grew a lot of potatoes at the time as well. So it meant that any children in the family had to become the staff. They had to be the workers on the farm. I think that's fairly standard. I think if you're born into farming, that just kind of comes with the territory. I think that's what you're probably gonna do when you're young. You can go off and do something when you're older, but certainly when you're young, I think that's fairly standard. So Clifford, at a young age, became the farm boy. He was used to rounding up the sheep and doing everything that was, farm related. So Cliff, as he's actually known, the Erd part of his name had disappeared when he became a teenager. Cliff was healthy and strong young man. He was a vegetarian. He had a good diet, and he was really fit from running after the sheep every single day. And as he grew into an adult, well, Cliff didn't leave the farm. He stayed there with his family for really all of his life. Cliff developed a really keen interest in running. Now, he hadn't ever trained. There was no formal training for Cliff. He just liked running, and he was pretty good at it. Throughout his adult life, he just continued to work on the farm. And unfortunately, he never met anyone. He never really had a partner. He never married. He just spends all of his time getting the farm into a good shape. When his parents get a bit older and they can do less on the farm, Cliff steps in and he takes over farming duties. Okay, so that's Cliff at this moment, okay? That's his life. He's an adult, he's living on the farm, and he's in charge of it. He's really in charge of it. And he's still daily looking after the sheep, looking after the potatoes. By now they've got a few more different animals. Cliff's in charge. So we'll leave him alone for a wee second. And we'll switch to talking about the Sydney to Melbourne Ultramarathon. What the hell is that? What is it then? Well, it's a marathon like no other, as its name might suggest. So it goes from Sydney to Melbourne, and it travels on busy roads, public highways, and in total it's 875 kilometres. So I never understand kilometres. I'm rubbish at all that conversion of stuff, so I would like to work in miles. It's 554 miles. It takes forever to complete. Runners have to run for hours, stop, sleep, and then wake up and get back on it the next day. There's a cash prize of $10,000 for the winner of the ultramarathon. So who would undertake this absolutely grueling and physically exhausting challenge? Well, athletes. People who had trained for years. That wasn't really the deal. I mean, anyone could enter this race. But being that physically challenging and being that grueling, it really kind of demanded that you had a level of fitness and that you had an understanding really of running and, running over a long period of time. Here's the thing about the ultramarathon. It started as this silly competition between friends years before. A bunch of mates got together and they were like, oh, wouldn't it be really funny if one of us could run from Sydney to Melbourne using this route and whatever. And so these pals just kind of they just dared each other. They just challenged each other to do it. But over the years, it became a proper, massive sporting event. It had become so big that people who were running in it, they would receive sponsorship from big corporate companies. Now, it was Australia's biggest race, and every year it gained a lot of TV time, and the athletes and the people who were winning the ultramarathon were coming out the other side of it celebrities. As we see all the time. I'm sure this happens worldwide, but here in the UK, after the London Olympics, there was just this absolute explosion of celebrities to come out of it. People you had never heard of, but because they won a gold medal, they were suddenly on chat shows, they were on radio, you were seeing them everywhere all the time. So yeah, it's a big major event. So nowadays we've got things like the London Marathon, Boston Marathon. There's a million of them. The New York Marathon and all that. There's loads of them. So in this race was a man called Siggy Bauer. a very, very successful marathon runner. And he'd won lots of races in Australia. And he was the favourite to win the ultra marathon. So everything's in place. The ultra marathon is set to begin. And on the morning of the race, who rocks up to the starting line? Well, Cliff. Here he is. Cliff Young. At this point, Cliff, get this, 61 years old. I love this guy. He's a legend. So here's Cliff, and he decides, yep, I'm going to run the ultra marathon. Let's talk about what Cliff is wearing when he arrives. These details are brilliant. I find them so funny. He wasn't really wearing the correct clothing. He had a sort of makeshift running outfit on. So on top he's wearing an Adidas t-shirt, and below he's wearing a pair of trousers, jogging bottoms, I guess is what I would call them, or sweatpants if you were an American. And what he'd done is he'd cut holes in them for ventilation. So you've got all these other like competitors, and they're there, and they're all in their like branded clothing, and they're there wearing like the best sports gear you could probably buy at the time, really expensive. And here's Cliff. Here he is, jogging bottoms, cut a few holes in them for ventilation. Cliff had no teeth in, and that's because he wore false teeth, and he said that they rattled when he ran, so he didn't have them in. Brilliant. So here's toothless, not really dressed appropriately for the kind of conditions he's going to be running in. Here's Cliff. The judges, well, I don't know, would you call... No, you wouldn't call them judges. The race adjudicators, organisers. They were worried. Cliff looked pretty frail and, as I've stated, obviously not dressed appropriately. So they ask him, what does he think he's doing here? And he says, well, I'm going to run the race. And they say, okay, why? And he says, well, I've always wanted to, and I just happen to be free right now. They say, have you trained? And he says, well, I've been chasing sheep for years around the farm, so that's been my training. And they said, are you aware of the distance that this is? It's over 500 miles of running. And Cliff, and I love this, in a sassy moment from Cliff, he won't be patronised, he says, yes, I know how far it is, thank you. Love that. Good on you, Cliff. So they had real concerns that what might happen is that after a few miles, Cliff might collapse, and it concerned them greatly. But at the same time, they couldn't refuse his entry to the race. So the race starts, and those athletes that I mentioned earlier, they are off like a shot. They are leading the way. Thousands of people are running. And guess who is way, way at the back? It's Cliff. He is a huge distance behind the rest of the race. Now, Cliff had quite a particular running style. It's not really the sort of running style that you would see for a marathon. It's kind of less of a run, more of a shuffle. You know, it's not got that kind of classic running man shape. Cliff had none of that. He was just like, okay, on I go. Just gonna keep moving. So what would happen is, the people in front of Cliff, they would like disappear and go off to sleep for like 6 hours. Where the hell are they all going? What's happening here? But he thinks, do you know what? I'm just going to keep moving. I'll just keep going on. I'll just keep moving forward. So for 5 days, Cliff runs non-stop. What a man. He doesn't sleep at all. He just keeps running, or shuffling, as it were. He occasionally stops for a glass of milk. Now, when the other competitors wake up each day and they set off again, they start to realise they're in a bit of trouble. Cliff is way out in the lead. He's covered more ground than runners in their 20s and 30s. So by now, Cliff is getting, as you can imagine, huge attention. First, Australia-wide, and then worldwide. Newspapers, TV reports, they're full of images of Cliff running along the highways. So news crews and TV reporters, they're driving up alongside Cliff running. People were making banners, that said things like, "Keep running, Cliff." Crowds were gathering to cheer him on as he was passing by. There's a point where a news van pulls up beside him, and a reporter sticks her head out of the van, and she pushes a microphone into his face as he's running. And she asks, "Cliff, how are you doing this?" And he says, "I don't know. I'm just keeping running." That was my great Australian accent. At one point he says, I'm sure I started this race with a jacket, but I've absolutely no idea where it is right now. He's also lost his hat along the way, doesn't know what's going on. But he is in the lead. Still running, keeping going. After 5 days and 14 hours of non-stop running, Cliff wins the ultramarathon at the age of 61. He finishes 10 hours ahead of the person who came in second. 10 hours ahead of the person who came in second. That's unbelievable. It's incredible. He had all the odds stacked against him and he won it. I'm not saying in any way that I think 61 is old. I'm really not. I think you can be really fit at that age. I'm just saying, never having trained, never having competed in something like this before, it's just incredible. So Cliff, he crosses that finishing line and he is now a celebrity. The whole of Australia have watched this on TV, this untrained man win their biggest sporting event. It's unbelievable. So Cliff is given the $10,000 prize and he says, "Oh, I didn't know there was a prize." So, and this is so nice, the 5 people who came in behind him, so 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th and 6th position, he gives them each $2,000 of his prize fund and he leaves himself with nothing. I mean, this guy. So he's now appearing on lots of news shows and interviews, and he keeps competing in lots of different races. In an interview, it's funny, he's asked, would you have any advice for people your age who wanted to compete in races and do such things? And he says, yeah, get up, get out and do it. He goes on to say, the doctors once told me I had arthritis in my joints and I was to take it easy. And I said, nah, I'll just fix it myself. I'll run it out. So I've kept running and my arthritis has disappeared. In the later races, he never quite matches the success of the ultramarathon, but I don't suppose he needs to. I mean, that was such an incredible achievement that would be hard to beat. Cliff, having been single all of his life, met and married a 23-year-old. He was 62. She was 23. All right, Cliff. I see your game. But after a few years, they divorced. Cliff sort of fell out of the spotlight. He went back to working on the farm, and still on that farm, he died of cancer in 2000. 3. The shuffle, the way that he ran, is now known worldwide as the Cliff Young Shuffle. And athletes these days, they learn it as part of their training because it's a way of running without expending too much energy. Australia eventually named one of their races after Cliff. And there's films, there's books, there's statues, there's TV shows all about Cliff and his achievements. And I think the best thing really to take from it is that it's this idea that if you want to do something that seems impossible, just give it a go. Because you never know, you might just win. Okay? So ends the story of Cliff Young. Okay, well, I hope you enjoyed that. If you look online, you'll find lots of footage of Cliff running the ultramarathon. Anyway, I am out of here. As always, get in touch. I'm not hard to find. If you want to support the podcast, you can with Patreon, or you could leave me an iTunes review. It all helps, one way or another. Thank you. Okay, I'll speak to you at the weekend. Okay, goodbye.
It didn't affect me really one way or the other. I would imagine from the look on his face, let's get it on, let's do it, let's get it over. Let's get it on, let's do it, let's get it over.